welcome back to our podcast. I'm the gentleman, accompanied by the disturbed Southern Belle.
Hello.
And in this episode, we will be starting a new series. As the Belle explained in the last one, we will be continuing this one throughout this month. And if we're not finished by the end of the month, the Belle will swap over to continuing with the series with me. So, we will be starting this series off with with one of the most well-known pioneers of the film industry, Fatty Arbuckle.
Yep.
So, Arbuckle is known as the Chris Farley of silent comedy films. By September of 1921, he had starred in more than 150 films. He was often seen wearing his signature baggy pants, suspenders, and oversized bowler hat. He was earning $1 million a year at Paramount at one point.
Right.
So, he owned a 20-room mansion in Los Angeles, complete with servants, oriental rugs, gold leaf bathtubs, and a cellar full of liquor, which he often broke out for his jazz-fueled parties. He also owned a fleet of luxury cars, including a plum-colored Pierce Arrow that cost approximately $34,000 at the time. Nowadays, that would equate to a little over $600,000.
So, not cheap.
And not cheap. Also, not one of the more expensive cars that I've heard of.
Well, back in that day, it might have been.
Oh, yeah, but I meant relative to expensive cars today.
Yeah, today, no.
When you have cars that are worth over $1 billion.
Yeah, exactly,
Well, over $1 million.
Couple million anyway, depending on the car. Yeah, definitely. So, but very expensive, let's put it that way.
Very expensive. So, everyone knew him so much so that even his pit bull terrier was famous. The dog was named Luke and also co-starred in a film called Fatty's Faithful Fido. So, on the Saturday before Labor Day in 1921, he drove his beloved Pierce Arrow to San Francisco for a weekend of partying. The man became known as Fatty due to his 260-pound stature and had earned the love of many fans with his pratfalls and skill at throwing custard pies into the faces of fellow actors. So, slapstick comedy.
Yeah, which was
basically
the big thing back then.
Oh, yeah.
Especially for the silent films and stuff. It had to be a lot of real theatrical stuff,
So, after he had arrived in San Francisco, he checked into the St. Francis, which was a grand European-style hotel that boasted its own orchestra and Turkish baths. He, along with his accompanying entourage, then fanned out into 3 adjoining rooms on the top floor. At the time, the country was about 20 months into Prohibition, but, as you probably imagine, this did not stop Arbuckle from getting his hands on liquor. So, that evening, he had actually received a shipment of gin and scotch for his party.
Right. Oh, yeah, he had money, so
Oh, yeah.
they could definitely get it.
So, late Monday morning on September 5th, a gown salesman named Ira Fort Louis was leaving the nearby Palace Hotel to meet with one of Arbuckle's friends. While he was in the lobby of the Palace, he had asked a bellboy about a chic young woman with dark hair that he had spotted. The bellboy told him that the young woman was Virginia Rapp, movie actress. Rapp was known to Arbuckle's group, so they sent word and had her invited for afternoon drinks. Rapp arrived around noon. She was dressed in a jade skirt and blouse, along with a Panama hat trimmed with a matching ribbon. She had told her companions that she planned to return in around 20 minutes if the party had turned out to be a dud, which is fair.
Right.
Unfortunately, she did not return.
No, unfortunately, she did not.
So, when she arrived in room 1220, she found Arbuckle dressed in pajamas and a purple bathrobe, as you typically wear when you're hosting a party.
Sure, why not?
So, he was holding court with a small group of wingmen and showgirls. The group then ordered a Victrola to the room and danced to Ain't We Got Fun.
Yeah, that was a big song back in the day.
So, they had more booze delivered to the rooms. Rapp's friends had by this time decided to join the party, and the group began drinking orange blossoms. So, at some point during the party, Rapp went to use the restroom in room 1221. However, it was occupied, so she headed into Arbuckle's room, which was room 1219, sometime just before 3 o'clock, and Arbuckle had entered the room as well, locking the door behind him. What exactly transpired was later poured over by 3 juries, a rather scandal-mad public, as you can imagine,
Mm-hmm.
and a century's worth of amateur criminologists, because of course.
Right.
So, in one version of the story, Arbuckle threw her onto the bed and mortally crushed her with his bulk. In another version, he found her ill and tended to her like a gentleman.
Right.
They were alone for either 10 minutes or an hour, depending on which story you believe, which that is a massive jump.
That is a huge discrepancy in time. But you
You'd
gotta
think they'd
remember,
be able to.
everybody was drunk.
Yeah,
So
that's fair.
God knows when they even might have noticed that she was even missing. Who knows?
Fair enough. A party member stated that she had grown so worried about Rapp that she had kicked the closed door and yelled out her name. Arbuckle, however, stated that he had opened the door unprovoked. Either way, when the other partygoers enter room 1219, they found Rapp barely conscious. She was said to be tearing at her clothes in agony and complaining about a fierce pain in her abdomen, which is always good.
Yep.
They put her into a cold bath and then later moved her into another room where a doctor determined that she had had too much to drink. The party then continued unthwarted, because why not?
Oh, yep.
Rapp spent 3 days in the hotel room, her pain dulled with morphine, before she was finally transferred to a sanatorium. As to why she wasn't moved sooner, it's unknown, and it's kind of infuriating.
It is.
Because what the hell?
I know.
You see this woman in pure agony,
Right.
barely conscious,
Right.
and you just decide to shoot her up with morphine
And
just continue on with the party.
Right. Just stick her out of sight, out of mind.
And this was a doctor.
Yeah.
That checked on her
Mm.
and just decided this was okay.
Yeah. I know. It's crazy. It is nuts.
Anyways, the next day after being moved on Friday, September 9th, she died. On Saturday, Arbuckle was arrested for her murder. The scandal that followed was one of the most notorious in a string of Hollywood scandals that had threatened to kill off the movie industry in its adolescence. Arbuckle's deadly pajama party came to epitomize the loosening morals that followed the First World War. A famous actor accused of sexual assault and murder, a media apparatus eager to capitalize on every salacious twist in the story, and an industry grappling with how to now dispose of a once profitable star that had turned into a pariah.
Mm-hmm.
Hollywood ultimately decided, because of course it did, with its first big PR disaster by regulating itself, so that no one else could.
Right.
This made the Arbuckle scandal an unlikely parable of corporate self-preservation.
Of course.
So, Arbuckle's fall was novel in that it represented a new kind of fame. He had been born in 1887 in a farmhouse in Kansas. The nickname Fatty had been a childhood taunt that he had later decided to embrace. He was reluctant, actually, to use his weight as a comic fodder, stating in 1917, "I refused to try to make people laugh at my bulk. Personally, I cannot believe that a battleship is a bit funnier than a canoe, but some people do not feel the same way about it."
True enough.
He began performing when he was 8, when his family moved to Santa Ana, California. A theater troupe that was passing through town needed a child actor, so, oh, okay.
They picked him.
His mother died when he was 12, and he was sent north to live with his father, who had abandoned the family and supposedly owned a hotel in Watsonville. By the time he arrived, his father had sold the hotel and left town. He sat sobbing until some locals took him in, allowing him to earn his keep by doing chores and singing for the hotel's guests. Eventually, his father returned, took the boy to live with him, and, as probably was the case for a lot of people in that time, he would often be thrashed by his father during his father's alcoholic rages.
Right.
So, Arbuckle's stepmother recalled once having to rescue the boy when his father was choking him and beating his head against a tree.
Good grief.
Which I gotta admit, I don't hear about that kind of beating often.
No, that's pretty. They
Usually it's like a belt or fists. That seems like it got pretty
that's
violent.
pretty brutal. It is.
Like, that just sounds like a bit more than
like you're trying to kill the child.
Yeah, that sounds like a bit more than just a beating and like an alcoholic rage. That sounds like intended murder.
Yeah, that's not a swat on the legs or butt or something. That's yeah, that's bad.
Anyways, Arbuckle was described as having a bell-like voice in his youth. He often sang in the vaudeville houses, performing what was known as illustrated songs, which would actually be a forerunner of today's music videos, in which popular songs were accompanied by slideshows.
That's kind of cool.
It is, actually. As a teenager, he managed to escape from his father by touring with the Pantages theater circuit.
Hmm.
In 1908, he met Minta Dufree, who was performing on the same bill in Long Beach, and the pair would actually later end up married on the stage of the Bidewell Theater.
Hmm.
So in 1913, he went to Keystone Studios, a comedy studio known as the Fun Factory, and also the home of the bumbling Keystone Cops. He was hired to work for $3 a day, which in today's currency would be about $55 a day.
Well, I made terrible money. I mean,
Yeah,
not great, but not horrible.
yeah. So, in his first year, he acted in no less than 36 shorts. The next year, Charlie Chaplin, who was still developing his little tramp persona, joined the studio. He and Arbuckle acted together in 7 films. They, along with Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks, were part of the first wave of movie stars.
Mm-hmm.
They were covered by the media as if they were American royalty, which, to be fair,
They
they
kind of
kind of
were.
were.
Yeah, they kind of were at that time. Yeah, definitely.
So, in 1916, Arbuckle was approached by Paramount. He joined the studio after being offered his own production company, Comic Film Corporation, which included a base salary of about 7 times what he was making at Keystone.
Right.
They also required him to renege on a smaller deal that would have included his wife, Dufree, and this led the couple to drift into an unpublicized separation. Paramount then sent him out on a 23-stop publicity tour. As a director of his own pictures, he brought on the younger comedian Buster Keaton,
Mm-hmm.
who later became a frequent co-star with Arbuckle and a lifelong defender of him. The rapid rise of movie stars shook up the balance of power in Hollywood, and this was especially true when Chaplin, Pickford, and Fairbanks teamed up with D.W. Griffith to form their own collective, United Artists.
Mm-hmm.
Amid rumors that Arbuckle might join with them, Paramount showered him with cash in a deal that would pay him $3 million over the course of 3 years, which in today's currency would be about $55 million today.
So no small sum.
No small sum, no. The record payday for Arbuckle made headlines, as is natural, and he soon embraced a lifestyle to match it. He bought his mansion, cars, and briefly a basketball team. By Labor Day of 1921, he had 7 films playing in theaters with 2 more wrapped. Less is known about Rapp's early life. She was born in 1891 in Chicago and began modeling at the age 16. She changed the pronunciation of her name to the more exotic Rappe. She marketed her own designs, such as hats shaped like spiderwebs, submarines, and dove wings.
Okay.
Interesting group.
A submarine shaped hat would be very interesting. Yes.
Yeah. So she moved to Los Angeles in 1916 in the hopes of becoming the next Mary Pickford. By 1921, she was 30, but was shaving off years of her age. And her multiple careers had ebbed. Only after her death did her name become a marquee attraction, although she had starred in several roles. Shortly after her death, a doctor examined her body and recorded that she had several bruises on her right arm and her thighs. He also reported that there was no sign of any sexual assault.
Right.
So, he cut open her abdomen and found a hole in the outer wall of her bladder that was an eighth of an inch wide. The cause of death was reported as a rupture of the bladder, attributed in part to acute peritonitis, which is a redness and swelling of the lining of the belly or abdomen. It is often caused by an infection from a hole in the bowel or a burst appendix. A second doctor performed another autopsy on her later that evening and agreed that the bladder had killed her, but they didn't know what ruptured it.
Right.
The second doctor suspected it was from some external force. Arbuckle had already taken a steamship home to L.A. when a reporter informed him of Rapp's death. Later that night, he attended a midnight meeting at Sid Grauman's $1 Million Theater. In attendance were reportedly his Labor Day companions, his lawyer, and a friend of Rapp, Al Semnocker, I think is how you pronounce that.
Something like that, yeah.
What exactly was discussed is completely unknown. Perhaps they were trying to get their story straight, as some people have claimed. Initially, Arbuckle denied ever being alone with Rapp, which was proven a lie by multiple testimonies. But on the advice of his lawyer, he shut up.
Mm.
San Francisco theaters immediately banned Arbuckle's films. Within a week, his movies all vanished nationwide. In one Wyoming theater, it was reported that a mob of cowboys shot up his image on the screen. This was later discovered to have been concocted by the theater owner for publicity, because of course it was.
Why not, right?
Paramount stopped paying Arbuckle 11 days after his arrest on the grounds that he was locked up in a San Francisco jail and unable to report for work.
Mm.
The next day, Universal Studios wrote a morality clause into its contracts that mandated non-payment to performers who forfeit the respect of the public. This led to horrific consequences. As an example, the star Gloria Swanson became pregnant by a man who wasn't her husband and became so terrified of being ostracized that she got a botched abortion that almost cost her life.
Goodness.
The scandal was a media bonanza, as you can
I
imagine.
can imagine. Jeez Louise.
Without any real competition from radio or magazines, newspapers were the only real game in town, so to speak. They often published multiple editions a day, which of course makes sense as the internet was not an option in those days. The people did not have a lot of options as they wanted to stay on top of current events.
Right.
Or if they wanted to stay on top.
Exactly, because something had happened, later in the afternoon, they'd have to put it in, later, what I mean, so that people could keep up with what was going on during the day.
Yep. So, the Los Angeles Times ran a headline that read, "Plan to send Arbuckle to death on gallows."
Good grief. That's pretty brutal.
Yeah. Or the San Francisco Call-and-Post running headlines that read, "Arbuckle dances while girl is dying, joyous frolic amid death tragedy."
Goodness.
Interesting title, by the
Goodness
way.
gracious, though. I mean, they are really painting him as a monster.
They really are.
Without really knowing anything at this point. They don't know anything.
Yeah, they do not. Doing what the media does best.
Exactly.
Anyways, many outlets also described the party as an orgy. A later quote stated, "The newspapers had proved in less than a week that the public got a much greater thrill out of watching stars fall than out of watching them shine," which is still accurate today.
It very much so is. Very much so.
A star witness for Matthew Brady, the San Francisco district attorney, was Maud Delmont. They claimed that Arbuckle had dragged Rapp into room 1219, hollering, "I have been trying to get you for 5 years."
Mm.
In Delmont's affidavit, she recalled hearing Rapp's brutal screams. The Dayton Daily News declared that Arbuckle had been filled with liquor and that his low bestiality asserts itself to treating a woman like a grizzly would a cat.
Good God.
Interesting description.
That is. My goodness.
So, on Sundays, ministers across the country denounced Arbuckle as a symbol of Hollywood sin, with one stating, "He has betrayed the thousands of little children who laughed at his antics. He has defied chastity and mocked virtue." Censorship laws began creeping into state houses, because of course they did.
Absolutely.
And studios were dreading the thought of government regulation. Matthew Brady understood that he was not just prosecuting Arbuckle, but by doing so, he also was prosecuting the film industry.
Fair enough.
Unfortunately for him, his case hit several snags. At the coroner's inquest, the complaining witness, Maud Delmont, who the press had dubbed as the Avenger, admitted to drinking 8 or 10 whiskeys at the party, and several parts of her story proved flimsy.
Oh my goodness.
So right there, she was inebriated at the time that she is claiming
Very
to have
much
heard and
so.
witnessed certain things. In my opinion, that should invalidate her entire testimony.
It should, and then plus they're poking holes in it. Yeah,
Yes.
so yeah.
Anyways, it was also discovered that she had married one husband without divorcing another. So that was a whole thing. She was later arrested for bigamy. And so...
My God. That is not a star witness.
No, that is not. Anyways, since all that happened, Brady never put her on the stand. I wonder why.
Yeah, right.
His new star witness was Zay Prevost. Probably mispronouncing that, but and Alice Blake. They were also not the silver bullet that he was hoping for. Blake initially told detectives that she'd heard Rapp say, "He killed me." Later, she denied this before a grand jury, settling on the less damning, "He hurt me." Nonetheless, Brady was determined to press forward with rape and murder charges. At the preliminary hearings, Al Semnacher, Rapp's friend, dropped a bombshell. He testified that the day after the party, Arbuckle told him that he had applied ice to a piece of Rapp's body, and when pressed to say where the ice was placed, he was rather embarrassed to say it out loud and opted to write it on a piece of paper. The word was snatch.
Oh my gosh. It's not funny, but it is. Jesus.
Newspapers could not print the word, wonder why,
Yeah.
and instead ran headlines like, "Witness testifies Arbuckle confessed he tortured actress."
Oh my gosh.
Which, I don't know, I feel like that's a bit of an overstatement.
Yeah.
Exaggeration.
Because, yeah, we don't know what else. Yes, we don't even know what else going on, but whatever.
Also, beyond that, there are people who do, I'll use the word play here, like that.
Sure. I mean, all we know, she might have been into it, don't even mean that it was anything because she was hurt. It could have been just for, fun. Who knows?
Anyways, the defense undercut Semnacher by suggesting that he had conspired to extort Arbuckle. Prevost remembered that Arbuckle had put ice on Rapp's abdominal region to revive her. This led to a myth that Arbuckle was impotent during the attack and instead violated Rapp with a bottle.
Mm-hmm.
The judge deemed that the ice anecdote was unseemly, however irrelevant. He then ruled that Arbuckle be tried for the lesser charge of manslaughter, which, given what people are saying and the quote-unquote evidence,
Right.
I don't know, I feel like that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, because they're not really finding it as much. There's not a lot of evidence here. Everybody was just absolutely hammered, let's be honest.
Yeah.
And so there was no reliable witnesses. They were technically alone.
Also, another thing I feel I should clarify. So after learning about this story and hearing it full through, I do think that if it wasn't for like them just leaving her in that room for days, I feel like manslaughter would have been a bit too much. But since they did that, I feel like manslaughter is an accurate word
now,
for
whether
that.
or not I would say it was him, because I don't know that he even made the decision. It sounds more like the doctor was saying she was okay and just leave her. So, I don't even know. It sounds nuts.
I don't know. It just sounds to me like he's the one that everyone wanted to blame for that.
He was the scapegoat in this situation. Yeah. Because he was with her. But that means nothing. That doesn't mean he did anything to her. There's no direct proof that he did. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, so the trial began on November 18th. Arbuckle's estranged wife, Minta Dufree, sat behind him along with Arbuckle's mother. The state called a hotel maid who claimed to have heard Rapp screaming, "Oh no, oh my God," which this is new information.
But that could be 100,000 things.
Yes.
It could have been she vomited on herself or something.
Yes, or it could have been a reaction to the pain.
It could have been.
That she was
in because of her
provenly experiencing.
Exactly. Her bladder ruptured. We don't know. Anybody could be saying that for any reason.
Yes. Anyways, a criminologist testified that both Rapp and Arbuckle's fingerprints were found on the room's door, also suggesting that this was because Rapp had tried to leave the room and Arbuckle had pressed his hand against hers.
Or they could have just touched the door because it was his room.
That's how fingerprints work.
Right. It was his room, so it's obvious he probably had touched the door sometime, and she could have just put her hand up there pushing the door open or something. It might not have been like closed or something. It's dumb, but whatever.
It is dumb, but it is what it is.
Right.
Anyways, defense witnesses included doctors who claimed a distended bladder could have ruptured spontaneously, which is my personal theory on what happened. Most
very
likely.
Much could have happened, yeah.
And also people who had seen Rapp tear at her clothes at other times when she had had too much to drink.
Right, so it was something she was known to do.
And that's another thing. That's why I believe that it was most likely just something that ruptured on its own, rather than Arbuckle causing it by hitting her or anything.
Right. It could have been because she was thrashing around, tearing at herself and stuff.
Not only that, she had drunk before. This was something that had happened before.
Right.
And we don't know how much this happened. She could have been a big drinker.
Right.
Which means that this could have happened very commonly. And if you do something that irritates part of your body
over and
over again, eventually it's going to get worse.
It can.
And in this instance, it was just a matter of time until something really bad happened.
Or she could have fell on something.
Yeah.
If she was really drunk, I mean, we don't know. And it could something could have hit her. Like she could have fell against a chair or something. And that's what happened. I mean, we don't know.
Yeah. Anyways, the main event was Arbuckle's testimony. He maintained that he had found Rapp vomiting in his bathroom and that he had assisted her. As for the ice, he said that Delmont had already put it on Rapp's body and that he had only picked it up out of curiosity. Okay. I will admit that's a bit weird, but whatever. In closing arguments, the defense tried to paint Arbuckle as a martyr who had sweetened human existence by the laughter of millions and millions of innocent children.
Now, I'm wondering why they're putting her in like a cold bath and ice. It makes me think that she had a fever or something and she was really hot.
That would make sense. Plus, it was something dealing with inflammation as well.
Right. So that does make you think that there was something going on inside of her body already.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like she could have some sort of an infection or something. Yeah. That's what it makes you think, And then she was really hot. And then, of course, they didn't know that, what was going on. And they just put her, because that don't make any sense.
It really doesn't.
In some ways. But whatever. Go ahead.
The prosecution countered by calling him a modern Belshazzar, I'm not sure how to pronounce that.
Mm-hmm.
He was, for those who don't know, a Babylonian king whose sin was that he failed to humble himself and honor God.
Right.
And so they were calling him this because of what they said he did.
Right.
And that he would never make the world laugh again.
Right.
After 2 days of deliberation, the jury came back deadlocked, 10-2 in favor of acquittal. One of the holdouts, Helen Hubbard, said that the male jurists had berated her.
I can imagine they probably did.
Probably. Abandoned by his studio and much of his public, Arbuckle told reporters, "I have suffered, and all I ask in repayment of the wrong done me is that the world which once loved me now withhold its judgment and give me a chance to prove before another jury that I am innocent."
Right.
The retrial began in January of 1922. Zay Prevost backtracked on her previous statement where she had claimed that she had heard Rapp say, "He hurt me," claiming that the prosecution had intimidated her.
That could have been true too.
Very much so. The defense was so confident in the second trial that it declined to make a closing statement. The second jury was the inverse of the first, deadlocked 10-2 in favor of a conviction. Anticipating another trial, Prevost went into hiding in New Orleans and was able to temporarily evade the police. At the third trial, the defense tried to impeach Rapp's character, even bringing in a former midwife who claimed to have attended to Rapp during multiple pregnancies. While the woman was never officially called to the stand, the information was shared.
Right.
Which means that it could have been complete bullshit.
Right. Yeah.
Such stuff was not entirely uncommon.
Exactly.
And honestly, still really isn't.
No, definitely not.
On April 12th, the third jury went into deliberation at 5:10 p.m. and returned 5 minutes later with a verdict of not guilty. Arbuckle later stated that he believed he was due for a comeback. Paramount tested the waters by allowing one of his shelved films to be screened. However, 6 days later, it was canceled all over again. Warren G. Harding's campaign manager, Will H. Hayes, was asked to head up a new organization called the Motion Pictures Producers and Distributors of America.
Right.
The idea was modeled after Major League Baseball, which had brought on its first commissioner after the fixed World Series of 1919. Hayes' first major act was to ban Arbuckle from the screen. Hayes later wrote in his autobiography that the decision had come from Paramount's president, Adolph Zukor, who wanted to sacrifice Arbuckle without it being traced back to the studio.
Probably happened.
Probably.
I wouldn't be surprised.
In 1927, Hayes issued a list of what became known as don'ts and be carefuls, which barred movies from showing sex, profanity, ridicule of the clergy, and other vices. The rules were lazily enforced, and it wasn't until 1934, after talkies presented new avenues for obscenity, that Hayes formed the Production Code Administration, And so homosexuality, miscegenation, and moral ambiguity were all but absent from the screen up until the late 60s.
Right.
At the end, Arbuckle was described as being very bitter over what he believed was injustice, which is fair, which officially and professionally ruined him. He began to drink more heavily, and legal fees had left him in a mountain of debt, as they tend to do.
Yeah, very much so.
He went back to the vaudeville circuit, though his appearances sometimes drew protests. In 1924, Buster Keaton brought him on as co-director for the film Sherlock Jr., but he was so irritable that Keaton fired him after 3 weeks. Over time, however, Arbuckle was able to build a steady career directing under his father's first and middle names, William Goodrich. Keaton later joked that his pseudonym should be Will Be Good. Fair.
Yeah.
He later bought a nightclub in Culver City, though it went under after the stock market crash.
Right.
The rise of talkies brought more work for William Goodrich, but he still wasn't satisfied. He told Photoplay in 1931 that he wanted to return to the screen. The following year, he got his chance when Warner Bros. Hired him to star in a trio of shorts. They were uncontroversial enough that the studio planned 8 more shorts and even considered putting him in a feature film. In 1933, or June of 1933, Arbuckle and his third wife were in Manhattan toasting their anniversary and his imminent comeback. He went to bed that night in the Central Park Hotel and died in his sleep of a heart attack at the age of 46. So what do you think? Personally, I think this was a giant fuster-cluck of a situation.
Yeah. Now, I'm not going to... Okay, so I'm going to say this. I don't know whether or not maybe they did something or not. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. Maybe he even attacked her and did something. But they really had no evidence
They
to
really
prove it.
didn't.
I mean, it was just... Now,
all the evidence that they claimed to have was easily either disproven or countered by something else.
Right. Now, that's what I don't like about it. And also, I don't like that they put her in just a room and left her there. Had they not done that and got her medical attention,
she might have lived.
She may have lived and been fine. They might have actually saved her. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how far gone she was, but she would at least maybe have had a chance.
Yeah. However, all they did was just shoot her up with morphine and left her to die.
Pretty much. I mean, that's pretty much it. Until she probably just got to the point where she was just like getting worse and worse and worse. And they're finally like, well, we gotta have to do something.
Yeah.
And there was a doctor present.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay with it. It's like, what? Why wasn't he brought in and questioned for why he didn't send her to the hospital or something?
Good question.
But anyway, we do hope you enjoyed that segment. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. And don't forget to
stay disturbed.